Part 1. 15-second hook. Thousands of years ago, when humanity supposedly lived with stone tools and simple minds, someone lifted stones heavier than airplanes, cut them with impossible precision, and aligned them with the stars. Even today, with cranes, computers, and lasers, we struggle to explain how it was done. So, here's the question no one wants to answer. What if humans were not alone? Thousands of years ago, before steel, electricity, or modern machines existed, the Earth was already marked by silence-breaking monuments that rose from stone and shadow. Imagine standing in the desert as the sun sets behind the Great Pyramid, its massive blocks glowing orange, each stone weighing more than a city bus. A young scribe named Menkora once stood there, his reed pen trembling in his hand as he looked up. "My father says men built this," he whispered to an older priest beside him. The priest didn't answer right away. He only smiled faintly and said, "Men followed instructions." Menkora had been taught that these stones were dragged by workers with ropes and wooden sleds. But as he ran his fingers along the joints between the blocks, he could not slide even a hair between them. No mortar, no gaps, just perfection. He had seen farmers struggle to lift a single stone for a wall, yet here were millions, stacked higher than imagination. At night, he noticed something even stranger. The pyramid was not just pointing anywhere. It pointed with purpose. Orion's belt shimmered above, mirroring the layout of the pyramids below, as if the ground itself was reflecting the sky. Far across the ocean, in a land that would one day be called Peru, a stonemason named Amaru pressed his ear against a block at Sacsayhuaman. The stone felt warm, alive almost. Each piece was carved into irregular shapes, yet fit together like a puzzle designed by a mind far beyond his own. Amaru remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories of Viracocha, the bearded god who came from the sky, who softened stone as if it were clay and taught the people how to build before disappearing into the heavens. "We did not cut these stones," his grandfather had said. "We were shown." Across continents, oceans, and centuries, these stories repeated themselves. Gods descending in fiery chariots. Teachers from the sky. Builders who came, instructed, and vanished. Official history would later dismiss these accounts as myths, metaphors, or imagination. But the stones remained, silent witnesses that refused to agree with the textbooks. Modern engineers would one day study these sites and feel something unsettling. The Great Pyramid's alignment with true north was more accurate than many modern buildings. The stones at Baalbek weighed over 800 tons each, resting on a platform that no crane today could easily replicate. In Puma Punku, blocks were carved with machine-like precision, complete with drill holes and right angles so exact they looked mass-produced. And yet, no tools were found. No workshops. No explanation that fully satisfied the evidence. A young archaeologist named Daniel Carter felt that unease deeply. Standing among the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, he brushed dust from a carved pillar depicting animals and symbols older than agriculture itself. "This shouldn't exist," he muttered. Civilization, according to everything he had been taught, was not supposed to begin this way. Hunter-gatherers were not supposed to carve massive stone temples. Something was backwards. Or something was missing. At night, Daniel sat by the fire with a local elder who spoke softly, as if the land itself was listening. "The Watchers came before us," the old man said. "They taught, then they left, but they promised to return." Daniel laughed nervously, but the words stayed with him. When he looked up at the stars, he felt the same strange alignment Menkora had felt thousands of years earlier. As above, so below. Was it possible that ancient civilizations shared a forgotten chapter of human history? One where knowledge appeared suddenly, fully formed, and then vanished? One where humanity was guided during its infancy by something older, smarter, and not entirely human? The stones offered no clear answers. But they did something more dangerous. They asked questions. And once those questions were asked, they could not be ignored. Part 2. As centuries passed, the memory of the builders faded, but the structures remained. Wind carved the faces of statues. Sand buried cities. Jungles swallowed temples whole. Yet the precision endured. In Egypt, the builders left behind not only pyramids, but star shafts, narrow tunnels aimed precisely at specific constellations. These were not random. They were intentional. The soul of the pharaoh, according to ancient texts, would travel along these paths to join the gods among the stars. A priestess named Neferet once guided a mourning family through a burial ritual. As incense filled the chamber, she whispered ancient words taught to her by generations before. "He returns to the sky," she said. When a child asked her where the gods lived, she pointed upward. Always upward. The gods were not from the earth. They came from above. In Mesoamerica, the Maya watched the heavens with equal devotion. Their calendars were so accurate they could predict eclipses centuries in advance. A young astronomer named Itzum stood atop a stepped pyramid, adjusting his stone markers as Venus rose exactly where the ancestors said it would.
"They taught us this," his mentor said.
The star people. When Itzum asked who they were, the old man only smiled. The ones who came before. The similarities between these cultures were impossible to ignore. Pyramidal structures. Obsession with the stars. Myths of sky beings. Knowledge that seemed far ahead of its time. How could civilizations separated by oceans share the same architectural language? Coincidence was the official answer. Independent development. Human genius. Yet the details refused to stay quiet. At Baalbek, Roman builders later admitted they built their temples on top of something much older. The massive trilithon stones beneath their work were already there, already perfectly placed. "We could not move them if we tried," one Roman engineer reportedly said. "So, we built on what the gods left behind." Even conquerors respected the mystery. In India, ancient texts spoke of vimanas, flying machines that roared through the skies. Descriptions included metal bodies, weapons of light, and journeys between worlds. A storyteller named Ravi recited these epics to wide-eyed children, his voice rising as he described gods battling in the heavens. "These are just stories," a skeptical traveler once said. Ravi shook his head gently. "Stories remember what people forget." Modern science attempted to silence these whispers. Historians labeled ancient texts as allegory. Engineers proposed theories involving ramps, levers, and lost techniques. But none could fully explain the scale, precision, and global consistency. The deeper researchers dug, the stranger it became. Daniel Carter returned home and presented his findings to colleagues. "These sites show evidence of advanced knowledge appearing suddenly," he said. "No gradual development. No clear origin." The room grew quiet. One professor finally spoke. "Be careful," he warned. "You're stepping outside acceptable history." Daniel understood the message. Some questions were dangerous. But curiosity has a way of surviving rejection. Independent researchers began connecting dots others refused to see. Ancient maps showing Antarctica before ice. Legends describing global floods. Accounts of beings who promised to return when humanity was ready. Ready for what? One night, Daniel dreamed of standing among the ruins again. This time, the stones began to hum. A low vibration filled the air, and the stars above seemed closer, brighter. A voice echoed, not in sound but in feeling. "We were here." He woke up shaken, heart racing. It was just a dream, he told himself. But deep down, he knew it felt more like a memory. Part 3. As humanity entered the modern age, technology advanced rapidly, yet the ancient structures continued to mock progress. Cranes buckled under weights ancient builders somehow managed. Diamond-tipped drills struggled to replicate cuts found in stone thousands of years old. Engineers recreated experiments, dragging blocks across sand, but the math never fully worked. Something was missing from the equation. In Bolivia, at Puma Punku, Daniel met a stone cutter named Luis who ran his fingers along a carved H-block. "You see this?" Luis said quietly. "Perfect right angles. Drill holes with no wobble. This was not done with stone tools." He shook his head in disbelief. Even today, this would be difficult. Local legends spoke of giants and sky gods. One elderly woman told Daniel, "They came when the world was young. They built, then the flood came. After that, nothing was the same." Flood myths existed everywhere, from Noah to Manu to Utnapishtim. Entire civilizations wiped out, knowledge lost, survivors starting again with fragments of memory. What if humanity had risen before? What if advanced knowledge existed and was erased by catastrophe? Or what if that knowledge never belonged to us at all? Satellite images revealed more mysteries. Ancient lines etched into deserts, visible only from the sky. The Nazca lines stretched for miles, depicting animals and shapes best seen from above. Who were they meant for? Daniel wondered aloud. A pilot once said flying over them felt like reading a message. But a message to whom? Astronomers began noticing alignments not just to stars, but to specific celestial events thousands of years in the past. These structures were time markers, cosmic calendars. They were built with knowledge of precession, a slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. How did ancient people know this? A physicist named Dr. Elaine Morris reviewed the data skeptically at first, but the numbers disturbed her. This implies long-term astronomical observation far beyond what primitive societies should have, she admitted. Or access to knowledge we don't understand. The idea of extraterrestrial involvement was dismissed publicly, but privately, discussions changed tone. Governments quietly declassified UFO encounters. Pilots reported objects defying physics. Suddenly, the ancient myths didn't seem so far-fetched. Daniel visited Egypt one last time. Standing inside the Great Pyramid, he felt an overwhelming stillness. No hieroglyphs, no decoration, just raw geometry, as if the structure itself was the message. He placed his hand on the stone and whispered, "Why?" For a brief moment, he felt something, a vibration, a resonance. Perhaps imagination, perhaps something more. He thought of Menkora, Amaru, Itzum, all the forgotten witnesses of history. People who had seen wonders they couldn't explain and passed them down as stories. The question was no longer whether ancient civilizations were capable of greatness. It was whether they were alone in achieving it.
Part 4.
As debates raged, humanity faced a choice: to cling to comfortable explanations or confront the unsettling possibility that our story was incomplete, that we were students once, not masters, children guided by unseen teachers. A young student attending one of Daniel's lectures asked a simple question. "If they helped us, why leave?" Daniel paused. "Maybe we weren't ready," he said. Or maybe the lesson was never about dependence, but potential. Ancient texts often ended with promises. The gods would return. The watchers would come back, not as rulers but as witnesses, to see what humanity had become. Late at night, Daniel stared at the sky. Somewhere out there, perhaps, were the answers. Or perhaps the answers were already here, carved into stone, waiting for us to listen instead of explain them away. The monuments stood silent, patient. They had waited thousands of years. They could wait a little longer. Final part. In the end, the greatest mystery was not how the structures were built, but why. Why leave behind evidence so obvious, yet so easy to ignore? Why align stone with stars? Why teach, then disappear? Maybe the ancient builders wanted us to question, to look up, to remember that humanity's story does not begin and end on Earth alone. As the sun rose over the pyramids once more, shadows stretching across the sand, one truth remained undeniable. These structures were too advanced for their age. And until we accept that, the past will continue to whisper, and the stars will continue to watch. Outro. As the final echoes of history fade into silence, one question remains suspended in time. If ancient humans truly built these impossible structures alone, why do the stones still challenge our greatest minds today? Across deserts, jungles, and mountains, these monuments stand not as ruins, but as reminders, messages carved in stone, waiting to be understood. Perhaps they are proof of a forgotten chapter in human history. Or perhaps they are evidence that we were never as alone as we believed. The stars that guided ancient builders still shine above us, unchanged, watching as we finally begin to ask the right questions. If the past holds answers we are not yet ready to face, then one thing is certain. The truth is not buried beneath the sand, it's written in stone, and it's been waiting for us all along.